Welcome back to the Teacher's AI Cafe. I'm Kane, a teacher and a parent who wants AI to give us back our time. I share practical classroom-tested AI strategies to cut down your workload, improve your feedback and reduce stress so you can get your evenings back and be more present with your friends and family. No jargon, just actionable steps. Grab your mug. Now let's get going. Welcome back to the podcast. I thought this is a really timely episode that we're going to do today. I've got Kayla, one of the most popular episodes I've had on the show so far, the science teacher back to talk about. And we're actually here in our school summer holidays in mid-January, actually prepping for the new school year. We thought it would be a good opportunity to talk about how each of us is approaching coming back to school and prepping for new classes. It's a bit different for me. I'm actually picking up some classes I haven't taught for at least 5 years, lower school classes, first time in a long time. So I'm going to talk about how I actually go through the process of thinking what resources I've got versus a new program to make sure I'm doing everything right, like how I use AI to do that. And Kayla will talk about how she's using it in terms of getting herself ready. I'll get Kayla to fill in what's happening with her this year.
It's funny when I hear graduates and they're like, just 5 years of creating resources and I'll be set forever. And I'm like, I've been teaching for 12 years and every year it's a new course, new syllabus, something I haven't taught. There's something I haven't taught since 2017. Yeah, it's going to be a big year for me too.
Yes, a new school and new requirements and lots of what we call ATAR subjects you're taking on, which are a lot more demanding than our lower school ones. And I find it interesting because, not having taught anything for a while, how up to date are my resources? And what I've actually been spending the holidays doing, I thought, obviously I can try and use AI to shortcut this process because normally you would do it anyway, that you sit down, you look through your resources, you look through the program, you start matching up what you're going to do. How long does it normally take you to do that?
I'll be honest, Kane, I'm a perfectionist and especially now that AI exists, I look at my old stuff and I just don't think it's good enough anymore. So I'm probably adding more to my workload, but I probably should do exactly what you're giving me advice to do and do this match-up process.
Yeah, so what I would do, I like starting with I've got obviously my school program, my head of department makes for me, and she does absolutely a wonderful job. And what I do is I put that in first and I go get what's called our SCARs, the syllabus documents, assessment outlines, things the department produces that we have to do. And first thing I normally do is just run through and compare the program to what we're supposed to be doing to make sure I'm ticking all those boxes. If not, I can go back and have a chat to my hauler. I don't know about other places in the world, but obviously in WA, we do get flexibility in what we can teach. Actually at a school level, because obviously we've got very different students at different schools, different socioeconomic requirements on that. So what I normally do, once I'm actually happy with the program, what I've actually been doing is actually getting all my old resources. And some of these are, I guess, as Kayla said, about some are 10, 15 years old. Actually, some I pinched before I started teaching. So some are, 15. So some either 7 to 10 years old, I've used them all the time. And the program has changed a bit, I think, when I look in the documents. And what I do is I get my program, put the whole program in there. So it's got my 10 weeks or 9 weeks is what coming up with this term. And I actually drop all my resources in. And it takes a few goes. I build it in a project. And what I do is I actually ask it to go through and look at all my resources, analyze them, and then put them in a table according to the curriculum points, the content and the skills are actually doing for that. And I find that really handy because what AI actually pumps out for me is actually a nice little table. The first column is like the week and the curriculum points, and then lists actually the files and things I can actually use for those weeks. And sometimes I get things wrong because it depends on how it reads it. But if I get my naming and everything right, it can match up my resources, which it thinks that it was actually good for me teaching that week instead of me having to manually go through and sort it every time, which is actually quite handy.
How long did that take you to put all your resources in?
Probably took about half an hour.
Okay.
Yeah, because I've already got them. They're all easy to do. I've got...
You collect a lot over the years.
Yes, I've got 200 or 300 gigabytes worth of files and things. But I do have them sorted by lower school by, say, year 9, geography and things like that, and then by subject. So I have get them in order over the years, and then I have them by year. So I go to my last year, I think 2021 was the last time I taught it, so I can go to that folder and see all the things, resources I've used that year anyway, and I can just grade them out for that. But it takes obviously you got files uploading limits, so it takes a few goes to actually get through your files. You put them in the projects folder, and then you often got to add more in the chat and tell it not to do anything at all until I've uploaded all the files. So sometimes you can upload the paid version 10 at a time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you put 20 in the project folder, and then you do 10 and 10 till you basically cover all your resources. You could chop it down and do it in chunks, like weeks 3 to 4, 1 to 3 and so on. But I did the whole lot at once and it did a pretty good job, which was handy for me. Yeah.
I like that. I want to actually see what that actually looks like. And I feel like it also would be handy to have all your resources uploaded anyway, because at any point in time, chat can refer to those resources.
Yeah, I'll bring an interesting thing of that. But that I'll talk about later on. I was developing an unrelated resource for something else I was doing. And actually, someone obviously uploaded these resources. So I asked her to go find some information, or say the First Fleet of Australia. It actually went and pulled up a program. I just literally put a query in. So it's actually gone on the web, pulled up a school's program that obviously has uploaded it, and as well as someone's PowerPoint with actually the information, which is quite interesting. So if you don't have you want to probably untick sharing I think it's under, helping build the model, that option in privacy. If you tick that off, it doesn't actually share your data with everyone else.
So what you're telling me is that it was a resource that shouldn't be made public. Like you wouldn't.
I got a feeling they didn't want to make it public.
So you wouldn't be able to publicly access it via Google.
No, I wouldn't think so. No, I wouldn't think so.
It's because it's.
I think so. I honestly don't know. It's the first time it happened to me. It literally appeared, popped up, and it was actually pulling information out of this PowerPoint. And then I had to download the PowerPoint and hold it. Do I agree with everything this teacher has made? Because you've got to verify everything we do. So that's under your settings. So if you untick that box under the settings, you can obviously not share all your data to help train the model. And I think that will remove it. But I think these people have uploaded, or it's gone out onto the web and actually found it and brought it back. But it gave me a whole school's 10-week program.
Wow.
Which is quite handy. Looked quite professional too, which is really nice.
Yeah.
And it was pretty much what we taught anyway. So I think it was an Eastern State school. It was an Australian program, which was quite interesting. Getting out of that. But yeah, that's getting. So making sure when you upload it, you untick that box in your settings, which is actually really important. But yeah, like I said, that can sort it. And what I did from then is actually asked her to go through, and then I can easily identify gaps or resources I didn't have, which I had to then go and make. So if I had a week where I had no resources that existed or they didn't quite match up, I obviously now will spend time sitting down making those resources and filling in those gaps for me, which is that. Do you find when you're going through your resources, you pick up a subject you haven't taught in quite a few years, do you think have you identified gaps and things in your resources at the moment?
I'm definitely my own worst enemy. Every year I find gaps, even if it's the same syllabus. Yeah. I've got this constant need for improving what I'm already creating, which is obviously a good attribute to have. But it definitely depends on where you're at in your teaching journey and AI journey and what you're planning on getting out of AI. I definitely think originally I was like, I just want to save heaps of time, and this is why I'm making the resources.
I think so. That's why I started. It's all about workload. You want to reduce our workload.
Yeah. Doubling in the whole quality.
Yeah.
I want to get quality, and I want to get all the things that I wouldn't normally find time to do if I had to do it from scratch.
Yes.
So I'm doing it in a more timely manner, but now I'm improving in what I'm creating. Yeah, now I feel like I'm looking back at my old resources and being like, I could add this different activity within it. And I feel like I definitely go against the grain in terms I'm very pro PowerPoint. Very.
Yeah.
All of my resources now, all my lesson plans are within our PowerPoint. Even if it was a science investigation, I've now made the realization that I shouldn't expect kids to just listen to my verbal instructions. I need not just paper copy, but I also need the visual thing behind me and the YouTube video of me doing it in parts to go with it. And so I feel like...
So you embed them all within PowerPoint.
Yeah, my lesson plans are embedded in that. And actually last night I've made the official decision to move away from a paper diary.
Okay.
For the last 2 years, I've bought them and then ended up not using them. And so I was actually asking for some ideas of what should I use instead, because I'm, again, not
what was that one day? School Planner or something years ago? It was free. You could then drop all your lessons in there.
You're talking about Planbook?
Planbook. Is that the one? Yeah, I haven't used it for years.
Yeah, I used it. And then at one point, the app wasn't working on the iPad. And I can see that a lot of people on Facebook groups recommend it. I think it's still geared at primary school teachers or geared at people that are doing lesson planning from scratch.
Okay.
Where I feel like my lesson plans are already embedded and I'm focusing on lesson scheduling.
Yes.
And Chat gave me the idea, hey, maybe you should use a calendar. Okay. A calendar function on your laptop. And so I
just use a Word document and I do both. I literally download a column and then there's four columns. Then one column for each, lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson off the week. And I literally just drop in the topic and the thing I'm going to do on that day. And I do my term-based one. So I know these dates are public holidays and these dates are my assessments days. And okay, this is my schedule. And I just look at the single A4 bit of paper and then obviously matches up. What I've got on my computer, which is my subject with all my folders, lesson 1, lesson 2, with all the resources. obviously mixed in there.
I'm giving that calendar a go because at least then it syncs with your phone and it syncs with your watch. And I've color coordinated it, and it was actually really easy to repeat a lesson and actually upload all my lessons, and you just add it to your notes, and you can link your PowerPoint.
Okay.
You can actually add that link. You can add a URL. There's things that you can add to it. I'll come back to it. But chat did give me some ideas of how I could.
Your laptop doesn't support Apple Intelligence, does it?
It does.
It does.
Yeah,
it's one of the new ones.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Did that help? Did you use that or?
I'll be honest, I haven't really used it that much. I personally always seem to bring up the chat if I need to, rather than Apple Intelligence. But what have you dabbled in?
No, I haven't. I haven't really used it much at all. I just use ChatGPT. Obviously, we've been offline. We're talking about Notebook LM, and I've tried with a Gemini. They had a half price, I think, $9.95 for 3 months sort of account. So $9.95 a month. So I'm playing with that a little bit, but not getting ready for school. That's more building some resources and playing around, making things like infographics and graphic novels. And the infographics is not too bad in Notebook LM, but it's absolutely horrible if you try to do it in Gemini. It's still much better in ChatGPT, which is ironic because Gemini still seems to spell everything wrong, which is a bit frustrating when you look at the Nano Banana and what they're doing in Notebook LM with same engine. So it doesn't really make sense too much. So I guess what I do. So the other thing I was getting back to my prep is obviously making gaps, and we'll talk about how I make some new resources. Have you ever used backwards by design?
As in backwards planning from like year 12?
From the assessment. Yeah. Or no, backwards with the end of the unit. So backwards by design, the idea is you start with the end in mind and you work backwards, which seems really logical, but someone wrote a whole book on it. I know one school with it. So the idea is, the idea of that is I actually put my assessments in there, and then I put my program in there and all the skills and content I'm going to teach, and then I ask it to verify that I'm actually making sure I'm hitting all the content and the skills and the knowledge so I can actually test them on. And sometimes you do pick up gaps that, I'm not teaching this bit of content in the resources I've got as well.
Science teachers must listen to this. You need to do this. Do you know how many science assessments there are about science inquiry skills? And then you've done a whole unit of work with nothing in the program listed about inquiry skills. And I've worked at a couple of schools now that do that exact thing. And I'm like, you need to have it embedded in your program, especially for our graduate teachers. How are they meant to know?
Yeah.
This is meant to be something
because you miss gaps
along the way.
And what happens, especially new teachers, they come in, they'll be given a program resources, but the senior teachers will often, they just know, I've got to cover this, I cover that. It's not written down, and they make it up as they go along. And then the week before the assessment, I know it's happened.
Quickly teach this.
I know it's happened in Haas. And that's why many years ago when the department they'd never have the assessments ready at the beginning, and you get the end and they said half the teachers, because we were a massive department, said, I haven't taught that. And half the multiple choice questions, for example, couldn't use all the short answers because, no, we didn't cover that. We just did this and this. And till we got the idea. Get the assessment first and then work backwards. It's alleviated
the same idea, but to year 11, year 12, backwards to lower school as well. What are the skills that we need to, because I can't remember what year of teaching we were in. I've always been like a biology-focused teacher, and there were some teachers that have always taught chem and physics. That's sort of realised that there's different expectations for what a graph looks like by the time you get to year 11 and year 12.
Okay,
even for psychology. And it's, if you didn't already know, human bio is very much a dot to dot, and then chemistry and physics are always line of best fit. And it just happens to be that a lot of head of departments seem to be chemistry and physics teachers. But they go, this is the only way. And I had to bring out an ATAR exam. I'm like, sorry, it's not always this way. We need to add this to our backwards planning.
Yes.
We are preparing them for whatever subjects they're choosing for you.
All subjects do that. And obviously, we want our students to have a go at ATAR or university entry subject. But they all have their own peculiarities how they put them together. I know even between science and HAS. When we do graphs and things, they're different. The way we even draw them or put them together, and the way we refer to with what do you call it? I mean, if you do a climate graph.
To change. We're not allowed to call them bar. We have to call them column.
Columns and things. I think maths had something in it, and it's a line. And so there'll be different terminology, and then the students will say, but in science we call it this. And but I think having those, I'm more a history specialist. This particular way, and computer science as well. When I teach that, is honestly a formula. There's a method and formula to actually achieving really well in the example, which is a bit sad. But there's a certain way, vocabulary, the way you structure your sentences, the way you do your answers, it will get you the maximum amount of marks in the amount of time you have to write them. So rolling those down and then gradually build them from our equivalent to middle school 7 to 10, and then it actually gives the students a massive uptake. And I noticed that one of my daughters she went to what was called basically a gift and talent program, so a different school to my other daughter, both very talented. And she got such good development through, and it was done really well at that particular school. So when she went to the senior school, where she went there, she was miles ahead of everyone else. So she was in history, and she could answer everything. Obviously, she didn't even need to ask me for help. She had been taught so well through that stage that she knew all the structure, and she was instantly getting 80, 90% in all her assessments. Whereas the other students, when my daughter went there, they all struggled. They hadn't been taught it. 7, 10, nothing at all. To the point that I raised it with schools. My other kids go there and said, you're not teaching them these skills at all. I was starting to do that, but it was like for decades or so, they just never taught these skills whatsoever. And then they got to the senior school and they really struggled, these poor kids. And they're having to learn this as well as learning the mountains of obviously content you learn in history when you go into senior school. But the difference is, I know they're doing it more now, but that progression of skills from as they go through lower school into senior school is so important. That way they get there, they know what they do, and they can just run with it and then spend more time learning the new content.
So overall, if you're in charge of a lower school program, please drop some school SCARS documents and do some backward planning that way so that you know that there isn't any gaps, especially if you're focusing on year 10.
Yeah, it's funny because in my room, actually I don't have it in my, I used to have all the vocabulary lists of what to explain me was describe me. And I was talking in my head, he goes,
words.
All the verbs that you get in the sentence. And in my department goes, you don't normally put those up to senior school, in a senior school class. I said, we're trying to teach them all the way through. Even in the test, I can look up, describe, I've got to do this, or explain, I've got to do that. But actually, it doesn't bother me if I look in the test and that's how I'm supposed to answer it, because it's obviously giving that scaffolding. But yeah, it's just an interesting comment that, no, we don't normally show it till senior school.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe it shouldn't be across the board. Across primary school onwards. Come on, guys.
Yeah, exactly. But that's school. And that's a limited experience. I've been at 2 schools my whole teaching. No, three schools. Though I did do some relief at some private schools when I was off my long service leave. And that was interesting. But once again,
You told me that they've got access to
yes, they do, all
AI.
private schools. Yeah. But I chatted to the students. I said, they would actually ask me, sir, can I use AI? I said, yeah, go for it. But I used to chat to them, all the different classes, particularly the older ones, but none of them are actually showing how to use it. So there's no training within school. There's no development of the students. They're not saying, okay, this is how you use it really well. This is how you use it effectively. Like even I sat down, gave them some structures, how to write their prompts, and they said, this is much better. But there's none of that. It's just like it's existing there in that particular private school. It was a really good school, but like I said, this thing exists, but the schools haven't worked out how to develop. It's not important. It's not their main focus at the moment. So everyone's there. Students are stumbling around in the dark like us as well.
Yeah, I made a silly mistake of making some goals for last term of last year. I thought, I was like, yes, I'm going to teach them my year 10s on how to use chat, and not specifically chat because they've only got access to code. But I was pretty ambitious, thinking, I'm going to show them how to upload a SCARS document and say, what do I need to do and what do I need to know to get a C grade and those sorts of things. And I didn't realize that they can't upload documents. They basically don't have access to anything. It wouldn't let them log in, even with their education.
Still, no, it's blocked and nothing.
Yeah, but it does say coming soon. So it's not there yet. But it really highlighted how important literacy is. I definitely take my literacy skills for granted because the kids kept being like, well, it's not doing what it's doing for you. And I'm like reading their sentences and I'm like, there's spelling mistakes. There's no stops. You're missing words. Of course, it doesn't understand what you're doing. So it does highlight that literacy is really important in every subject.
In the modern world, yes. And I always argued coding was the big thing before AI, silicon. But teach kids the code, they have to be exact. It actually improves their spelling because they learn to slow down closely to read what they've actually written to find the mistakes when the computer says, that's not working. It gives an error. And it's a syntax error because they've typed or they've missed a letter or one letter or a semicolon or something. Use error, And just it forces them to do it. Luckily for me, it doesn't worry about spelling. You can misspell it all because obviously AI works. There's most likely next word is this, and it'll often get out of it what you put in when I type in queries.
I feel like if it's a typo, it's very different to kids that can't structure a sentence whatsoever.
Yeah, it's not clear what it's actually answering,
And then they do the whole, I give up, it doesn't work. And I'm
it doesn't work.
It does, let me show you.
Yes, and I think, but you can also use it, ask them to correct their queries first, or you get them, the students to say, ask AI to ask them to clarify what their question is if you actually got students with that problem.
maybe that can be a part of everyone's planning, is that, especially if it definitely gets released this year, which I assume it would, access for students, maybe we could embed it into our programs.
I think they should. It's going there. And most of the stuff I see online is around ethical use and not actual practical school skills, because obviously they don't want students to go away and just obviously use it. And they don't. Well, some do, but most don't anyway. And you can usually pick it anyway if you're a teacher. You thought, you didn't write that.
Oh, yeah. Glaringly
Unless they
obvious.
spend time actually getting it to dumb down the language, it's easy enough to do nowadays. And there's that website called Rewrite. You drop it in there, he'll rewrite it for you, the language of, so you can get your perfectly written essay and make it sound worse and get yourself a B instead of an A based on that. Yeah. Getting back. So when I've gone, getting back on track a little bit, so once I've worked out what I've got, obviously I turn up to, I guess, actual building resources and things. And I've talked about how we do that. But what about you? Have you discovered, you've been using AI for a while? When we had our interview, was it late last year?
Yeah, definitely late last year.
I'm trying to think before or
September?
after I went away. It was
Last
back in
before?
September. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
before. Yeah, quite a while away. Have you learned anything new of actually producing or lessons?
Oh, definitely. Part of it, I don't know why I didn't think of this earlier, but getting chat to improve your prompts. So maybe I'm getting down to the fact of, okay, this is part of the resource it's made it to the standard that I like. Okay, now how can I improve my prompts so that I get this next time? So I found that really helpful. And even just the order I write my prompt.
Yeah.
I've changed things around. So now I specifically ask for my learning intention and success criteria at the end. The only thing is that I feel like naturally lesson plans automatically put it at the beginning.
They do, yes.
Sometimes I'm like working on the lesson and adding to it, and then I need to ask a question and go, can we improve this?
So when you say at the end, as you say, do you say, give me a lesson plan, it produces all in one hit, and then it's at the bottom, just at the bottom?
Yeah,
or is it
at the end of me correcting, because it might produce something and I go, I want you to split up this slide. I want you to add more detail about this particular topic. What about this? What about that? And I'm talking about at the real end.
So do you tell at the beginning,
process.
Don't write learning intentions and things while I'm working through this? Do you actually tell it at the beginning? Or
I don't say don't do it.
Yes.
I just made it so that it wasn't the sentences of my prompt. My prompt is now super duper long, and I've split it into
your prompt
parts.
bank?
Yeah,
Copy and paste it?
yeah, my prompt bank. But yeah, just verifying that it does match at the end. And also working more on my supportive practice, which if you're into explicit style teaching, it's more of that we do, and making that realization, hey, we do isn't just teacher to student. It can be that peer-to-peer learning. It can be something where they are getting out of their seat. Or I've also gone to some of them where I ask for a specific scenario, because those are the style of questions that you would see in an ATAR or even a general space. And then I give this thing called a student response frame, which Chat gave me the idea for.
Yep.
I didn't come up with that on my own. So that I am doing more of that guided practice, that more of that we do in class. So yeah, just more, how can I improve the resources that I've already got, rather than going back to the whole, I'm trying to improve my quality.
Yep. Yeah. That's always important as always. Going through that. Okay. Yeah, most of my resources are filling gaps I've got a lot, which is pretty good. And like I said, I'm trying to improve it. I've been playing around, like with Gemini, trying to actually make some more visual resources and things that students can actually refer to.
Which I like. Keep showing me a couple. I'm actually really enjoying.
And one of them was
influencing me.
One thing I was toying with the idea is, so this is using Notebook LM. So Notebook LM I mentioned is added in an infographic and a slide deck one. And I was and one of the ones I've got there, look, slide deck, failed generation. There we go. What it's trying to do is actually trying to make it more visual, because I would obviously teach history. And the idea is getting a template together and actually using the slide deck feature to actually create a graphic novel within notebook.
They have to have similar names.
It's Notebook when I download it. So it's a nice graphic novel. So it looks like a Marvel comic for the students there. And we just tried to make one when we were chatting away in the background, and it's absolutely failed. So I'll start in the background.
For what topic are you?
I'll do the one again. This is one I was trying. Kayla, we're looking at psychology experiments. So
yeah, I gave him the challenge of a Milgram experiment.
So the infographic wasn't too bad. I love these experiments. I love doing them in HAS as well. Anyway, let's restart that again. We'll simplify the chat there. So Milgram experiment, made an infographic, and the infographics that actually come out of a Notebook actually look really good most of the time. They're fairly good. If you don't put too much data in there, I did one on the first fleet and it had so much figures, so much information because it was all the manifest, the cargo, all the animals they bought and all the like 700, or was it 470,000 nails or something or other. And
What?
yeah, it's quite a, and 4 carriages and carts and 3 different types of hose. And there's like, and then all the different people and things like that and all the different animals. They bought rabbits with them. I didn't know that. They bought 5 rabbits.
Just shoot.
No, I think for eating, they probably eat, just ate.
Oh,
Because
I thought that.
now that was a guy in Victoria who bought out the rabbits and let them on his farm. Obviously, they kept them in a cage in New South Wales. They didn't get out. If you ever come to Australia, we've had decades of rabbit plagues. And it was done by some guy who bought, I think, 2 dozen, like 12 or 20 rabbits out to his property in rural Victoria, which is in the south of Australia, because he wanted something to shoot, to the point that they actually became an absolute plague. They wiped out crops and everything, and we tried to kill them with chemicals, myxomatosis,
Yeah.
which is
So
sort
you
of...
gotta get, if you've got pet one, I know you've got to get it vaccinated before.
Yeah, and the guy went everywhere. Yeah, things you learn in history, I didn't realise they bought rabbits out. Obviously, they didn't get out, but yeah, these rabbits went everywhere in Australia, and you'll see footage of like thousands of them around waterholes and things like that, because they're, funny enough, bred like rabbits. We'll have a look. So the idea is making this really good infographics, and I'll chuck them up, I think, up on in the Facebook group, and they're pretty good. So I actually used ChatGPT to make one as well. So they actually both do it fairly well. I tried to get Gemini itself to do it, and they had so many spelling mistakes in it, it really wasn't worth it. But anyway, the idea of the graphic novel is I was doing the shot that shook the world, which is the death of Ferdinand in 1914, start of World War One. So Ferdinand shot in Sarajevo, and actually made it in the graphic novel. So the idea is my low literacy students can actually get the whole story, got the visuals without actually reading it. So I was thinking, or I can put it in actually a cartoon format for that. And so I started, most of them are 8 pages, but I'm trying to work down whether I can get it into 2 pages. So it's a single A4 side, flip backwards and forwards, basically. And then I was toying with the idea, I'll leave them blank and the students can then fill them in and tell the story in their own words that they're doing. But also I found I could change the style, because one of them I did, which was Australia's fall of Singapore to the end of the Kokoda Traffic Point, and asked to do it in the style of newspapers. So it looks like a whole lot of 1940s newspapers telling the story of a whole lot of different articles going through, which is quite interesting. So I was just toying with different ideas, and that's what I'm doing, fixing those gaps. Because a lot of my students this year I'm going to have more low literacy students than I've taught in the past. So
do your kids have, or your students, should I say, have access to devices?
No,
or will you need to print out all of this?
Print out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Access to colour printing?
Yeah, I do. No, we've actually got one colour printer in the school, but it's freely used, and I've never run out of printing credit. I haven't teach, but yeah, some teachers print all in colour. So yeah, when I make stuff, I'll teach, do it in colour. And I know my old school, we used to have a massive, like 20 grand a year photocopying for the department. It was like half the department's budget just went in photocopying in-house, because not everyone did it in colour. I know one teacher came in, she did everything in colour, and everyone else started doing it in colour after that. But the idea is, making it visual, but able to communicate history. So it's important in that is actually getting a template and then make sure it's historically accurate what's actually being shown. Because I know in my early days, I'd make individual slides and they were really weird and they weren't historically accurate. And I tried one for the Battle of Hastings, and they were wearing armour that they didn't wear at the time and things like that. So you need to put a pretty big, very explicit description in there of what you actually want them to wear as well. But no, it's very quick to build. This one's taking, while we're sitting here, but they take about 10, 15 minutes to make one. So they're quite slow compared to, I guess, other formats or building a PowerPoint or something like that. The other thing I found with a slide deck, I use Gamma. If I do the slide deck in Notebook LM, it exports them as PNG, all individual pictures. They're not actual. I thought they'd come out as a Google Doc.
Yeah, you would have shown. Which
is a bit different. But the other cool thing I found out of doing is, if I go, was a Google Forms, you can make quizzes. I'll just sign in here, one in Frank Kayla I was doing. And I did a resource lately. So if you do quizzes, what you can do, you code the version, describe. Now I found out, so with Gemini, if you go, I assume it's because it's a paid account. I haven't tried for a free one. So if I go in the Google Forms and I want to build a quiz for my kids to go on and do it, and this is really good because I like making pre and post tests, and I find it's digital, the kids can get in and do it. And if I use the answer, and if I type in the name of the...
And this is in Gemini.
It's got a box now. You can use Gemini in Google Forms to make it. If you do an and, it'll actually go and search your Google Drive. what I did is I typed in the name of the file. I chucked them in a file. I got this one called Iranian Women, which is one I did recently, very topical, about the rights and things of Iranian women before and after the revolution in 1979. So very topical at the moment because they're fighting for their freedom. So I can actually put that in there. They can ask it. So basically it links in this file because the Google Doc by using the name of the file. It brings up a list and you click, oh, that's the one I want. Create 15-word multiple choice quiz based on this document. Okay. So it's actually got my lesson. It's going to make a quiz there. And I found this is really good because I've got all my existing resources. And there we go. It's generated a quiz. The only thing I found to do, it doesn't actually put so I've got our 15 questions for people who are listening online. I've got my 15 questions multiple choice in thing. But I've actually got to go to create form. Once I've done that, then I've got to click in here and then actually change it. I've got to go to settings and actually make it a quiz. And when I come back to my questions, when I click on it, I need to then put the answer in there and give it a value.
Does it automatically shuffle the answers? Because I felt like that was an issue that I was having with chat every time I asked for something multiple choice.
I'll have to look at the quiz now. It was right to pursuit of rap policy.
So it doesn't automatically give you the answers. That's frustrating.
No, I can tell it to. And obviously, if you know your content, I know my answers correctly, so I can go to significance of the fan protection.
I'm just thinking about when you time for.
Yeah, it has randomized question. And you can tell it to randomize the answers anyway. A, B, C, D. And there we go. And I've got my quiz. Once I've gone through those, I just need to put my answers in. That's good for me as well, because you're obviously double checking that the questions I got are relevant. But it actually has just pulled all the questions straight out of my document, which is 2 pages of information.
Like saved you so much time rather than doing it in chat and then copy and pasting over. So,
and that's what I do. And what I found before is I couldn't go straight from ChatGPT it wouldn't import and work properly if I imported it into Google Forms. It worked fairly well when I went into Microsoft version of it.
Microsoft
Forms, yeah. But more people use Google, I've noticed. Yeah. Going around, you get to, and then, I had to get a third-party app, which cost me $9 a month to actually import it. It actually was called Form Builder. I had to invite Form Builder, and I thought, this one does it. If I'm paying Gemini at the moment, $9.95, it does the same thing for me. That's Middle East. So I'll just show Kayla here, which is So this is it. And I'll just show, this is my document. It's just 2 pages of information. 3 pages of information, yeah. It's just like a summary of events. And the rest of resources, just questions and categories.
Very clean.
Yes. Yeah, it looks very
clean
good.
And
Built-in Canva, which has got its own tools within there. So, I can go through my existing resources very quickly and just drop them in my Google Drive and say, just refer to these. I can build quizzes and check for understanding. I can use them for exit tickets. So my classes, if you've got classes with devices, you can then use it as an exit ticket. Quickly put your quiz up based on the information you've just done in that class to see how much they remember, instead of just doing the usual verbal. Unless you want to do verbal, you can't go to, you give me one fact about the lesson, they're all trying to get out the door.
Actually, no, I'm thinking about that as well, because at my new school, theoretically, I should have every student with a device. So
I think,
11 year 12, with what I've experienced in the past, no matter whatever.
Because you're doing the ATAR subjects, they tend to.
Yeah, they should theoretically have it. So maybe I can incorporate that as an exit ticket.
Or you can just do it on their phone. Just go check the school policies, but under teacher direction, actually a quiz really on your phone. And does it. And the beauty of logging with a Google Drive, you actually get their individual results. So you can actually who's getting it right, who's getting it wrong, as they go out the door, and then address it next lesson. Oh, you guys all sitting in that little group, you're getting all these wrong. Are you doing anything wrong? Are you paying attention or actually doing the work during lesson?
My formative assessment.
Yes, exactly. So that's pretty much where I am getting back to school. I don't know if there's anything else you want to talk about what you're doing or working on?
I feel like a lot of it's going to be working on it through the year. It'll be interesting when we revisit this time next year.
Yeah,
think about how much it's changed in a year.
Yes.
What's it going to look like in the following year?
Yeah, hopefully more accurate, and Gemini's got really good spelling. But yeah, it's going fairly quick, but in many ways you get faster models, you get better responses, but at the same time, the basics what we're doing, I don't feel that's changed going since I've started, was it? November 2022, the basics of good prompts and things hasn't changed.
Oh, yeah.
We're just getting better, more consistent, more accurate information out of the models. fact that, and plus things like projects, I think they're a big change.
Oh, yeah.
What I would need to be able to do is be able to rank projects. At the moment, they move up and down according to which one I'm using. It'd be nice if you could start pinning them and things like that. Would be, I think might be a feature this coming future. And I know you can personalize it. Gemini has brought a whole lot of gems. You can actually have multiple personalities. So whereas my personalization, ChatGPT, I'm a teacher, every prompt I actually type into, it comes up with relevance to the classroom with queries and things I can build on that because I'm saying I'm doing it as a teacher, which is quite handy because it relevance to classroom and it gives it questions and things specifically for education. If I ask you, like, give me a recipe on such and such, I want to know how to recipe on making like a rice bowl or something. It'll still give me classroom context at the bottom of every one of my queries.
Yeah. Just in case if you want to do a recipe one day with beans instead.
I know one of the things I made once is recipes for Anzac recipes and things like that. Yeah, you do. It's relevant. You can do.
I hope you're offering some gluten-free versions.
Since my wife is gluten-free, I have no choice when I'm doing things like that. In terms of lesson plans, I guess my style, I've never been big on lesson plans anyway. More like when I do it, I'm really looking at sequences and timing and things like that and brainstorming ideas. This is the content. What's a good way of breaking it down and give me a sort of rough draft and see what I'm thinking is a good idea as well. But in the end, obviously, you make up your own mind. There are constraints. And once you get in and know who your students are, you can work out how fast you can move them, where all their gaps are as well.
That's the beauty of when you get to teach a subject 2 years in a row. Because then you get that time to reflect and look at timing and things like that. And I feel like it's a bit hard to plan ahead if it's going into something or something you haven't done in a while or in a different school.
Primary school I've got, which they've done, and some people argue that there's a good study done that this was even in high school, having the same students for 2 years in a row, 2 classes, actually made a big difference. They found after 2 years it didn't make, but having them from back to back actually made a massive difference in actually their progression. Because you know all the students, the gaps. Now, I don't know what happens if you're a terrible teacher. They created all those gaps, but at least you can't say that. At least you can't get up and say, you should have learned this last year because you were their teacher last year. Getting into that. So I guess that's where I'm at. So we've got 2 weeks. 2 weeks today for back to PD days, our first staff development days. We get those. I don't know what other districts or countries do. We usually get 2 days at the beginning of the year to sort of prep and get in and do a bit of updates and things from our leadership.
Yeah. I'm feeling the pressure and I'm not even there yet.
Going through, get in early and set your classroom up. Oh, unless you've got something else to add, we'll leave it there today.
That sounds great.
Good. Thanks for coming in again today, and until next time.
See you then.
Thanks.